All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're going to go full-on detective mode. We're peeling back the surface of our planet's water to uncover the hidden threats swimming around in there. Consider this your guide to the usual suspects of aquatic pollution.
I mean, it's a fair question, right? You look at a lake or the ocean, and it seems fine. But what's really going on beneath that surface? Turns out, there's a whole cocktail of stuff that just does not belong there. So, what is it, and how did it get there?
So, before we can point any fingers, we need to define the crime itself. And aquatic pollution is basically this. It's an invasion. Harmful stuff gets into our water systems and completely messes them up, changing the water's very chemistry and making it dangerous for pretty much everything that lives in it.
Okay, to crack this case, we've got to start at the beginning. Where does all this trouble actually begin? Because these pollutants don't just appear out of thin air. They have very specific origins, and you might be shocked to learn how many of them are right in our own backyards.
And yeah, as you can see, the problem is coming from all over the place. We're talking about pollution from our homes, from giant factories, from the farms that grow our food, and even from medical sources. So, for this explainer, we're going to focus on three of the biggest troublemakers: the everyday intruders, the industrial heavyweights, and the truly sneaky, invisible invaders. Right. Let's zoom in on our first group of culprits. These are the pollutants that come straight from our daily lives, our communities, our routines. Let's meet the everyday intruders.
First up in the lineup, sewage. Yeah, not pretty. And it rarely works alone. It usually brings a partner in crime, a flood of excess nutrients. Seriously, think of them as this destructive duo, a 1-2 punch to the ecosystem.
And where do they come from? Well, you name it. The water that goes down your drain every day, the fertilizers that wash off farms and even suburban lawns, the huge sewage systems of our cities, even animal waste. It all has to go somewhere, and that somewhere is usually our waterways. So what's their MO? How do they actually do their dirty work? Well, first, all those extra nutrients are like a super fertilizer for algae, causing these massive explosions of growth called algae blooms. But here's the twist. When all that algae inevitably dies off, the bacteria that decompose it go into overdrive, and they use up a ton of oxygen in the water. It basically suffocates the water, creating what are known as dead zones, where fish and other animals just can't breathe. Okay, let's pivot to our next set of suspects. These are the big guns, the industrial heavyweights. We're talking about some really potent byproducts of manufacturing, mining, and our entire energy grid. Now, within this group, we're going to focus on three major offenders: hydrocarbons, that's your oil and petroleum, toxic heavy metals, and a whole buffet of other hazardous chemicals. And believe me, each one has its own unique way of causing chaos.
Let's start with hydrocarbons. When oil gets in the water, from a huge spill or just slow, steady runoff, it spreads out into this thin film on the surface. It's almost like shrink wrapping the water. It literally creates a barrier that stops oxygen from getting in from the air, choking all the life below.
And then, of course, there are heavy metals. This chart is like a most wanted list. You've got mercury, lead, cadmium. They all come from slightly different industrial sources, but they all share one thing. They are incredibly toxic. They cause everything from brain damage to devastating entire populations of organisms. And the scariest part? They don't break down. They just hang around and build up. Okay, we've met the big, obvious villains. But now let's talk about something a little more sinister. A threat that's so small it's practically invisible, yet it is absolutely everywhere. Say hello to the invisible invaders.
So what are we talking about here? Microplastics. And when we say micro, we mean it. We're talking about particles that are smaller than 5 millimeters.
To put that into perspective for you, that's smaller than a single grain of rice. So they're tiny, but don't let their size fool you. As we're about to see, their impact is gigantic.
And this is where it really hits home. Because microplastics don't just come from big water bottles breaking down over time. They are being created in our own houses. Every time you wash synthetic clothes, like that fleece jacket, a single load can shed hundreds of thousands of tiny plastic fibers right down the drain. They used to be put in things like face scrubs on purpose. They are quite literally everywhere.
So, okay, we have all these culprits swimming around in the water: sewage, heavy metals, tiny bits of plastic. What happens next? Well, this is the unsettling aftermath. This is where the problem really escalates, as these pollutants work their way right up the food chain. This all happens through two really important processes. First, you have bioaccumulation. That's when a pollutant, like mercury, builds up inside a single organism over its life. But then you get biomagnification. And this is where it gets really frightening. A little fish eats some of that pollutant. Then a bigger fish eats, say, 10 of those little fish. Now it has 10 times the poison. Then a bird eats a few of those bigger fish. You see where this is going? The toxin gets more and more concentrated at every step, making it most dangerous for the predators at the very top. And guess who's at the top of a lot of food chains? We are. And that really gets to the heart of the matter. The source material we're looking at says it perfectly. Understanding your enemy is the very first step to defeating it. Knowing where all these pollutants come from, how they move, and what they do, that's the only way we can even begin to come up with smart, effective ways to protect our water. So, we've identified the culprits, we've seen the damage they cause, we've followed the trail of evidence from our homes and factories right up to our own dinner plates. So the final question isn't just about what these pollutants do, it's, now that we've seen the lineup, what's our role in this story?